We're going to bring up panels of students who were here leading groups yesterday, and they're going to give you a little bit of a recount of what their groups were talking about. There will be an adult expert with them who's also going to try to stay out of the conversation so we can just hear what kids have to say. But if we miss a few details here and there, we are here. We have your backs, guys, so we'll be able to get a good account of what happened yesterday. So the first panel that's coming up was discussing mental health, and that included substance use, eating disorders, and self-harm. So I'd like those panelists to please come up. How this is going to work is that come on and take a seat, guys. Each student is going to introduce themselves, and then they're going to take 5 minutes to recount what they talked about for 6 hours yesterday. And then you will have 10 minutes to ask questions. So we're going to speak now about substance use first, then eating disorders, and then self-harm. So go ahead, introduce yourself and give us a quick recount. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Katherine Carlson. I'm a junior representing Goffstown High School, and my topic is substance use disorder.
Hi, I'm Adrienne De Almeida. I'm from Pinkerton Academy. I'm a junior, and I'm talking about suicide, self-harm, and depression.
Hi, my name is Aaron Silvestri. I'm a sophomore at Goffstown High School, and I will be talking about eating disorders.
Hi, my name is Emily Galeva. I'm going to be speaking on eating disorders, and I am from Lebanon High School, and I am a sophomore.
Hi, I'm Lorene Zamudo from Granite Pathways Youth Treatment Center in Manchester, and I am Catherine's sidekick.
Hi, I'm Deb Baird with NAMI New Hampshire, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and I'm with Adrienne, and we're talking about self-harm, depression, and suicide risk.
Hi, I'm Keith Out. I'm a pediatrician specializing in adolescent medicine at the Children's Hospital at Dartmouth-Hitchcock, and I have Aaron and Emily's back.
Great. Okay, so Catherine, you want to give us a quick update?
Yes, so one of the topics of discussion yesterday was substance use disorder. And just to get kind of an idea, can all the teens in this room stand up, please? If you're in high school, you didn't have to be here yesterday. Okay, now all teens that see either vaping, opioid use, or drug use in their school, please remain standing. Thank you. You can sit down now. Please notice how all the teens remain standing, meaning all the teens that were here yesterday, about 350, represented all of New Hampshire. That means and they represented all the districts. Substance use is it's very prominent in schools. And the 3 main topics that were covered yesterday were vaping, opioids, and marijuana. Now, can please all educators in the room stand up? So teachers, parents. Thank you. Now, all educators and parents that know what to do when they see either vaping, opioid use, or drug use in their school or in their home, please remain standing. So if you know what to do. Notice how about half of the people sat down. That means only half of the parents and educators, thank you, you may sit down now. Only about half of the parents and educators know what to do when they are faced with vaping and opioid use. This was a huge topic discussed with the teens yesterday, and we also were talking about how a lot of educators and admin will talk straight to the teens and students in assemblies, trying to get them to stop vaping or doing opioids, but it's not super effective because it's not a peer-to-peer connection, which is another big topic we talked about. And also that opioids and cigarettes and e-cigarettes are very easy to conceal, and that a lot of teens will conceal it, and a lot of teachers, admin, and parents don't even know or are aware that they're doing it either right in the classroom, right in the bathroom, or even in the hallways. And yes, that was most of the topics we covered yesterday.
Great, thanks, Catherine. Adrienne, you want to jump in?
Yeah. So like I said before, I am also trained in suicide prevention and bullying prevention. But my main thing yesterday was talking about suicide, mental health issues amongst teens. And sometimes what happens with teens is the adults don't realize, like, kids want to talk to kids. They don't want to hear it from you guys all the time. And actually, it's proven that when a kid talks to another kid going through a similar time or that has gone through a similar time in their life, there's a bigger connection. There's a more prominent outcome that's positive instead of the negative outcome. And so one of the most important things that I need to mention today is what kids thought their schools were like. And so some things that they found positive where there are a general list of resources, meaning people can tell you, hey, go see a therapist, hey, there are support groups for this. There are posters, there are classroom activities, there are videos, there are school offices, which not all the time are helpful to kids who don't know how to reach out. What kids wanted to see was even more impressive. They wanted to see learning during earlier intervention, meaning they wanted to see central schoolers at the end, middle schoolers all the way through, learning about mental health, learning about how to deal with these problems that they will experience in high school. They wanted to see families getting peer support, so students talking to families, so that families, because not everyone believes in mental health, not everyone sees how prominent it is, and people need to see that. They wanted to see people beginning to talk to other people. They wanted to see kids like all of us that are on this stage today, and we're so glad to be talking to all of you and teaching the adults. They wanted to see peer leadership so that they know that mental health doesn't take over your brain, it doesn't take over your life, and that was the most important thing that came out of yesterday. And so going on that note, the last thing I want to see is everyone who has experienced a mental health issue, depression, or anything of the matter, please raise your hand. It's prominent, it's everywhere. Thank you.
So we will be talking about eating disorders. And on a little side note, a lot of you guys raised your hand. And I'll say, as a little quick bit of information, back when the polls were up, only 2% of people said that they wanted to know about eating disorders. And that's a huge thing. A lot of us don't understand that a lot of us here have an eating disorder, and we're not aware of it. So what we talked about in my group and in basically all the groups is the lack of education students get and parents and adults get about what's happening, about what's going on and the support that they can get and what to do and how to help. There's many kids out there that are not sure how to help their friend and what supports they can say. They're like, hey, you just need to eat this. And they're saying, that's not how I feel, that's not how I do it. And that's the type of support that they want people to realize. They want to know, these people want you to know that they need help, they need education. They don't want a one-semester class in high school or middle school telling the health pyramid when it's different for everyone. That's a huge thing right there. We also talked about how social media really influences people and how social media makes you think what you can have, what people want to have, but they themselves don't know they have. That's what we're talking about, this whole thing, eating disorders, making your body look the best, even though it's not always going to be that way, because a perfect body is different to everyone. Because expectations are different for everyone. You either want to be fit, small, big, and that's all different depending on who you are.
So being a teenager is difficult. There's many ways that it's difficult, and eating disorders is one more thing that makes it a little more difficult. In my group, we talked about how growing up with all kinds of expectations is difficult. One of the expectations is body image and how you look, and for everyone that's different. Here's an example. This might make not a lot of sense to the adults in the room, but this is how a kid's brain works. So in school, you can't be stupid, so you want to be smart, but you can't be too smart, because if you're too smart, you're a know-it-all, and no one likes a know-it-all. Here's another example relating to body image. So you don't want to be fat because that's ugly or unhealthy, so you want to be skinny. But you can't be too skinny because then you look malnourished or you're flat, and no one likes that. So literally everything we do as teens has this confusing logic behind it. The logic of you want this because someone told you you want this, but you don't want too much of this, because then if you have too much, it's not good. Hearing that might have been confusing. That's the point. It's confusing. It's confusing in our brains. It's confusing being a teenager. The pressure to look a certain way is confusing, and that's what causes eating disorders. We need resources to vent to in school. Sometimes it's not even solving the issue, it's just talking. We don't have enough resources in our schools that we can talk to people about what's going on in our brains and in our lives. Sometimes talking to friends can help, but that's not a good solution because we need adults. Your friends may not know everything. In my group, sports got brought up a lot. Eating disorders is not only affecting girls, but it's also affecting males. So sports got brought up a lot. So one of the boys shared a personal story about how he was on a football team, and all his friends were like, bro, you need to bulk up, you need to get bigger because you're letting our team down. And that put a lot of pressure on him, knowing that he was letting his team down. They were like, oh, we're gonna lose the game if you don't get more muscle. Sometimes also boys feel too much stress on being too skinny because they want to be muscular and big because that's apparently what girls like. There was another story about a girl that got brought up. She was a cheerleader, and she had been cheering for 3 years, and she was a flyer, which is basically the tiny person that gets thrown up in the air and does all the cool tricks. So this was a sport she was very passionate about. 3 years, she put 3 years of hard work into this. And then the next year she came back, and she wanted to do her flying, and she wanted to be a flyer, and her coach told her, no, you can't be a flyer, you're too big for this. This put a lot of stress and anxiety on her, so she actually developed an eating disorder, bulimic, and if she had someone to talk to, she wouldn't have been puking every day in this bathroom, and she wouldn't have been ruining her body. We need more resources, and sometimes when kids look at adults, they see them on this pedestal that's way up here because as you're younger, you're taught, oh, you need to respect the adults in your life, and they know more, they're more mature. But what we need right now is adults to step off this pedestal. And we talked about some ways that adults can step off the pedestal to get more on our level. And something that might sound strange but really works is swearing. When you hear an adult swear, it's a little bit strange and it's like, oh, kids do that too, so it makes it more relatable. We don't need people who are formal. We need people who are relatable. We need to be able to talk to somebody, not just see someone, go in for therapy, have them look at a board, write down every little thing like you were being assessed on a test, nod their head a little bit, It doesn't work. We need someone we can talk to, have a conversation with. You need to understand us as a person and just talk to us, not understand the issues that we're going through. That's the only way we can help. We need more resources in school, and a way that can come through is with school counselors. So that was the thing that we discussed.
So Jim Wahlberg said he met these really intelligent kids yesterday. What do you think about this group of kids?
Thank you.
You're asking what resources that you want to have in the school. So what do you want us to get in the school as a parent that we can advocate for?
We want more school counselors. Sometimes there is school counselors, but there's maybe 1 or 2. If we're lucky enough, sometimes there's 3 in bigger schools. But what happens with these school counselors is there's a certain time that you need to sign up to talk to them. And certain times when you have an issue, it's not a time-based issue from 3 or 4 o'clock where you can talk. Sometimes things just happen. So you need more school counselors so that more kids have opportunities to go to them. Because a lot of times school counselors are really busy and they're already scheduled with other kids. But sometimes when issues pop up, they just happen throughout the day. So we need more school resources through counselors or something else.
And Adrian, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, another thing that kids in my mental health group really advocated for, which was amazing to see. So if you are one of them, thank you so much. But they wanted to see peers getting involved, and I stress that so much because I am a peer leader in my school, and I have gone through Connect training. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's where you get trained in suicide prevention. So if a kid comes up to you and they're like, hey, I'm not feeling this anymore, what do? Just by a show of hands, how many of you teachers know what to do if someone came up to you and told you that they were suicidal?
That's encouraging. Great.
I have a kind of a follow-up, and I'm the parent of a Goffstown freshman. And I know they have, I think, 3 or 4 counselors, but they're divided by the alphabet. Would you think that it would be more beneficial for them to have more specialties, like instead of divided by alphabet, say this counselor, say Miss Morrison, she would be good to go to for the eating disorders or the suicidal thoughts rather than dividing it by alphabet?
One thing, I'm a fellow person from Goffstown. One thing for us is that I didn't necessarily like my counselor, so I switched because I felt that I wasn't prepared to have the person I was with. So I switched. And I do agree that if these counselors can be trained specifically on one subject in a hardcore way, where if a student has a problem, they can go to this specific counselor. So they have someone to go to that knows in-depth skills, not someone that knows a little bit about it and then can help you a little bit. It's someone that can help you a whole bunch.
I'm also a fellow Goffstown person, and we recently got an SAP. So for people who don't know that, that's a student-assisted program. It's a counselor in a guidance office that isn't specified to like an alphabet, and kids can go to them and talk about issues such as mental health, suicide, and drug use. And even if they see it in their bathrooms or schools, they can go to them and talk to them about that. And they have a confidentiality contract that they can't tell anyone else unless it's very prominent or dangerous, such as a suicidal thought or plan.
Great, thank you, Catherine. There's a question over here.
Sorry. I believe the state minimum is 250 students per counselor, and I just don't think that's enough. So that is probably one way we can, as a community in our schools, is your student assistant person by grant, or is it a fully funded moving forward? Because we had a third counselor through a grant who did an incredible job at our school, and then the grant ended. So we need, when we bring those people in and we add that support, they need to be added to the budget for the school district.
Yeah, I think as you discuss things throughout the day, thinking at that policy level about funding for schools, clearly the theme amongst this group, and we'll hear from others, is more counselors, better trained teachers, and significantly what's matching with the national data is that kids really do well when they mentor each other. So, and they consistently asked yesterday for training for each other. So. Unfortunately, we're going to have to move on to the next panel, but thank you guys so much for sharing. I really appreciate this very difficult conversation. The next group is on diversity and respect. So if those folks could run up to the stage so we can get started. We're going to talk about gender and sexuality, race and ethnicity, and bullying.
I'll take the opportunity while they're transitioning to hit again on that theme, not only counselors, but what I was struck by was the desire to have time to speak with one another, to continue the dialogues that they started yesterday while we have the other people coming up. And then health education earlier, these topics in middle school and earlier, and then more consistently through high school. They're talking about it being one semester class for 4 years and that being inadequate. They want to learn more. They want to talk and they want to learn more.
Hi, my name is Liam Smith. I'm from Milford High School, and I'm also part of a CAS coalition.
Hi, I'm Melanie Cooper, and I'm a senior from Timberlane High School. Oh.
Hi, again. I'm Aaron Silvestri, and I'll be talking about race and ethnicity.
Hi, I'm Tristan Dennis. I will be talking about, I'm from Timberlane Regional High School, and I will be talking and discussing genders and sexualities.
Hello again. My name is Emily. Once again, I am from Lebanon High School, and I'm still a sophomore.
Hi, I'm Shazia Saval. I'm a child and adolescent and addiction psychiatrist. I work at Dartmouth and actually filling in for somebody.
Hi, I'm Tim Lena. I'm a Student Assistance Program Coordinator at Timberlane Regional High School. I also sit on the Governor's Commission on Alcohol and Drugs and the Prevention Task Force Chair.
Liam, you want to go first?
My group was really great. We did bullying and everything, and what I saw from the groups was schools that have good resources and like therapists and a bunch of counselors have less bullying than like schools that have like one counselor or two and little resources, or they're not taught about how to talk about things. And there's a huge way to bully people, and which is really unfortunate, but there's like so many things here. I have a list and it's just so long, and that's just one group, and that's really worrying. And like, it's such a childish thing, but it's people don't bully other people because they're bad people. They have like bad child experiences, or they just have depression or anxiety or something, and they don't know how to cope with it. And that's the huge issue. And I see a bunch of schools addressing bullying as if it's malicious intent and you're just only there to hurt the person, and the bully is just an awful person. And that's not true, because we're all people. And like, so can we get a raise of hand for anybody who has never done anything wrong? If anybody put up your hand, you were definitely lying. But yeah, we've all done something. We've made a mistake. And if, sure, like someone may have stole like their own candy from Halloween or something, or someone could have hurt someone else. But it's just the idea that a bully is a bad person and that they hurt someone, and so they should be punished. They should be talked to. They are people. It's not like just because they've hurt someone else doesn't mean that they're a person. They can be hurting. And that's like what I want schools to focus on, is the fact that these are people, they're real, and they just want help.
Are you talking about bullying also, Emily?
Yeah.
So did your groups talk a little bit about what would help?
Well, they said that like a lot of like teachers and stuff, like they're not really there for them, and like they don't know like how to go to them, because like they feel like that they don't really care about like how they're feeling, so they just go to their friends because they feel like they can trust their friends more than like teachers and stuff.
And did schools have rules about bullying?
Yeah.
Did students feel like they were enforced?
Kinda.
Okay, great. Well, we got a little bit covered on bullying, so we'll come back to you with questions after. So let's hear what Aaron has to say.
Hello again.
Thank you.
I'll be covering race and ethnicity, and it's a hard, weird conversation. I like to call this conversation the awkward conversation, because it's awkward to have these conversations, but there's such unique conversations if you get a in-depth conversation that people are open to talk about. And one thing that we talked about in our groups was education and influence on your parents and what they had on you and how you grew up. So I heard multiple people say in my group yesterday that they heard the N-word multiple times a day in their school. I'm not sure about you guys, but I do not like that one bit. I'm Mexican American, and one thing I always hear is jokes in school, and they're microaggressions, right? And what are microaggressions? They are little bits of aggression, literally. And it's like, hey, this, and then you get to call it a joke after. Oh, no, that was just a joke. Don't take it personally. That's microaggression. And what we see is that people that say, oh, it's just a joke, that's where it starts. That's where it begins. But then it could turn into something different. That's what I heard a lot of people say yesterday. So, yeah, it's scary to not know what's going on. But I'm not sure if you guys are educators or where you are, but I'm willing to bet that there's not a lot of ethnic people or people of color where you are. And what I do know is that New Hampshire has increasingly become a more racially diverse place. So it's hard to tell you what to do. But what I can say is that in my school, for the first time, one of our summer reading books was written by a African American. And it was the first book that students have read written by a colored person. So if you're in education, it can be the first start. Hey, this wasn't written by someone that is white and dead. So it's a start. It's also part of comfortability and who you're with. If you guys are able to talk it, and if you have someone that is prepared to talk about these awkward conversations. They're weird conversations, just like every conversation we have up here. Up there, yet again with the small stat, only 4% people wanted to know what was this about. Yet it's becoming increasingly aware in our today's culture of what's happening today with ethnicity, what your food is like, what you look like, because everything comes back to appearance.
Thank you.
So I'm Tristan, as we already stated, and forgive me, I like to be humorous, so if it comes out bad, just laugh, okay? Just please, I beg of you, it makes me feel more comfortable. So I will be discussing genders and sexualities, as we, again, already went over.
Hold the microphone up a little closer. Thank you.
We
don't want to miss a word.
Don't worry, you're gonna want to miss a few because I would talk too much. So what we mainly discussed was, for one, we discussed a lot that we have problems with health education, that it's not discussed enough because obviously we will state that it is mainly dominated for straight people, that we will discuss that more because it is more of a frequent thing, we will admit. But we as a community have been left out and we are kind of just wandering in the dark. We can't find the light switch. It's somewhere there, but where, I don't know. But we're rubbing up against the walls, we're looking for it, and we have to slowly do it ourselves. And then at some points there can be mistakes upon the way. You trip and fall, you hit the bedstand. Oh my God, my toe hurts. Middle of the night, I went to go get water and you hit your toe on the stand and it's painful. But you get up and you continue and you still are looking for the light switch. And I think that we need to make doorways, for the light. And we need to open it and we need to help kids be like, it's not like you're left out, it's just we don't understand either. And you know what, we're gonna try to learn ourselves. And so at that, we also need to start discussing that adults need to start learning about the LGBTQI plus community. And with that was more education, of course. And that is what we see problems with, is education. And we need to start looking for more people to come forward and start speaking about the uncomfortable subjects, like, say, transitioning, because some parents may have transgender children and they're like, I want to help my kid and I want them to love themselves, but I don't know if I want to put them under the knife to get something done to them that they might regret, because I have heard my own mother say that. And
So it sounds like there's a little theme here that we want more information about how to talk to each other, better informed teachers and adults in our lives, and open doors.
Yep.
And it's interesting that that's across some of these themes. We're starting to run out of time, and I want to have time for questions.
Oh, forgive
So we'll just
me.
go quick, and then to Emily, and then.
Forgive me, like I said, I talk too much. Oof.
Thank you so much.
By a show of hands in the room, who likes to feel comfortable and supported? Everyone. So now, do you want your kids and peers to feel comfortable and supported? Raise your hand. Exactly, everyone, that's good. So something we talked about in my group, and something students wanted to push for, is all gender bathrooms. They want all gender bathrooms in their school. Honestly, I was a little shocked that other schools don't have all gender bathrooms, because in our school, we have them, so I just thought it was normal that schools would have them, but we don't have them. So what all gender bathrooms is instead of a bunch of stalls that you go into and just go to the bathroom, it's an individual room and anyone can go in it. It's not only for gay people, it's not only for transgender people, straight people can use them too, but they're just labeled all gender bathrooms to make people more comfortable. It's a more comfortable space. So trans people and gay people can sometimes feel uncomfortable going into a bathroom that is labeled a boy bathroom or a girl bathroom. There was a story that someone shared personally. They said that once they came out as gay, one, they lost a lot of friends, but they went into the bathroom after that and they saw one of their fellow peers in there, a few urinals down, and the person that was in there thought that he was going to attack him or sexually assault him or look at him or rape him in the bathroom. And that made him really uncomfortable, like hearing that. Like that's something really uncomfortable hearing. He felt like that's uncomfortable for the boy too, because he felt like he was gonna get harassed. And honestly, like it just put him in an uncomfortable position, and it made him get a lot of anxiety about going to the bathroom and going into public bathrooms. And that's something that has really stuck with him throughout the years. And even in other public places, not in school now, he doesn't want to go into a bathroom and just go to the bathroom. It seems so simple, but it created a lot of like anxiety for him. And also, it's super embarrassing for someone to go in and be looked at weird and to feel uncomfortable and put in that situation. It's just embarrassing. And by something so simple as putting an all-gender bathroom, that eliminates so much stress and anxiety that can go into something as simple as, or simple for you guys to just go into the bathroom and go to the bathroom. It just eliminates a lot of stress. So instead of putting money into all these sports teams at school that honestly aren't really gonna matter in the future, why don't we just put it into a school bathroom? It's not that complicated.
So I think that there's probably some athletes in the room that may be concerned about that. And there's certainly benefits to sports, but it sounds like what you guys are all saying is we need more support, we need more information, we need to be able to be comfortable talking about really difficult conversations, and we actually need some structural differences too. So I wanted to take a stop there and see if we have time for just a couple of questions from the audience, and maybe we'll get more of what you guys wanted to say out of those questions.
Tristan, okay. You said LGBTQI. I'm not familiar what the I is.
I believe it's intersex.
Oh, okay.
Because it is, there's debate upon that subject because I believe it's because people fight about it because it's like you're born like that and they're like, okay, whatever. But I believe it's in there because you have to basically confirm which gender you are.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Question behind you.
Hopefully at this point, all schools have a gay straight alliance or some group or club to give you that opportunity. But the best thing that happened at our school is that group met with the staff and just educated us on what it means, how they felt, what they wanted from us, what's respectful, what's okay. I know yesterday you said if you say he by accident, correct yourself because it's polite. And I just think we as educators need to be educated.
Thank you for saying that.
But we heard yesterday that not all schools necessarily do, right? Is that what you guys heard in the sessions? Have a gay straight alliance?
There were, I think in one group, there were students who didn't know what a gay straight alliance was.
Yeah, most of the kids in my group didn't even know what it was, or they said that they didn't even have anything at their school for that. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone had them in ours, like at least a few of the kids had like all the kids had one in our group, but like the few of them were like, it's iffy. We have like a group of friends and that's it.
There's a question over here.
Okay, this question's about bullying, and at the most basic level, New Hampshire's had a lot of youth suicides. We just had one this week. Can you talk about, I feel like bullying, the word, has become the most generic word, but yet it has the worst consequences. And my kids, like, I'll yell at them and they'll tell me, oh, stop, you're bullying me. Like, the bullying word is like, has no meaning anymore. And I'm really wondering, do students really understand what bullying is? Do parents really understand what bullying is? Now, I have 2 girls in middle school, and I'm here just as a parent. I came from the Seacoast just as a parent. And I was told maybe in elementary school what bullying was, like the real definition. And it was so specific, I still don't know what it is. And I'm just thinking this word bullying really means nothing anymore. And it's causing kids to commit suicide. And if we can define and stop maybe using the word bullying so much and say, I don't know, this repetitive, unacceptable behavior and start explaining it. And I'm just wondering again, what's going on in the schools and what do you really think kids know about bullying and what do parents really understand that bullying is? And what's being done about it?
What do you guys think?
That's a really good point, and I know I see people saying, no, you're bullying me a lot in school as well, and like I have my math teacher's really good about it, and she says if there's an actual bullying case, I need to report it to the office. But if it's just someone offended you or made a joke, and it's like that hurts people. Like I said, it's childish and everything, but like the most basic term that I can put bullying into is someone hurting someone else more than once. It's like you can just be like, it's in the hallway, someone on purposely like rams into you with their shoulder or something, and it's just things that hurt other people, and it seems so menial at the time, like, oh, it's a funny joke, I do it every day. They know it's a joke, they don't know it's a joke, and like, I guess like kids and parents, it's become slang. It's become an overused word, such as like or literally, like where it has no meaning anymore. It's you're bullying me. It's like friends say you're bullying me. Stop. And it's like people, like you said, get bullied and they kill themselves, and it's such an awful thing. And they don't want to be like, oh, this person's bullying me, because the word has no more meaning.
So do you have an idea of how you could give the word meaning? How should we respond to bullying so that people understand the behavior?
Like, you're constantly doing it, and like you don't stop doing it, and you just do it every single day.
So this wasn't my topic, but if I can pop in real quick. So for health classes in our school, it's usually just one semester, and usually we have a lot of information to go over, and sometimes bullying can be skipped over or looked over just because you think like, oh, you've seen this in elementary school, like it's already been discussed a lot, and a lot of times you see these cliche videos of 11-year-olds with terrible acting that talk about bullying, and it's just not accurate information because it's videos that you've seen every single year. And our school actually did this amazing thing. She's a new health teacher, and she just got hired this year, but she kind of restructured how we do it. And instead of showing like cliche videos, so something you could bring up to your school, is actually telling personal stories. So she did research on her own, and she found personal stories about bullying that affected high schoolers, and not just like middle school or these like cliche topics. And she went into depth with them, and she actually used like personal anecdotes that she had seen in her life with bullying and how she had been bullied throughout her high school and middle school, and she actually had to switch schools. So giving a personal story really hit a lot of kids, and I think that health classes should kind of be like expanded, not just into one semester, and that topic should really be like dug into more so that kids can actually understand it instead of being kind of swept under the rug. So you could definitely bring that up to your school administration, and if enough kids post about it or go over it, like that change is going to be made.
So definitely a little bit of time. Last word, and then we got to move on.
So I agree with that, like the education, and it's like, I've talked about mental health and everything with the film fest as well, and what I've seen as well is that kids want teachers to be educated, like, because people, it's like you said, bullying has become such an overused word, and people need to know what it is. And like health class, like stories really, like one kid in my group told a story, and that like really gave the idea of how far bullying can go, and he was like severely hurt, and he could have eventually been killed. But it's really scary, and people like go through being bullied, and they don't even know that they're being bullied, and we need like people to understand that it is a thing that happens. But just being called a name every day, that can hurt, and people are different, and so I guess we just need more people to be educated on what it really is, and not making fun of one person once, which is still bad, but still.
Great. Yeah, very difficult thing to talk about, and even more so sitting up on a stage in front of a couple hundred people. So thank you guys so much for talking to us today. So the last group is timely topics, and if those folks can please make their way to the stage. Timely topics are school violence, pressure for success, and road trip, driving while distracted. And just as they're getting up together, I'll just mention, in terms of the understanding of the word or the action bullying, I think one of the things we really have to be mindful of is just the perception of the person who's being bullied. It may not look like bullying to us, but if someone feels that they're being bullied, we really need to pay attention to that. I'm sure that students will agree. Okay, so we're going to talk about school violence, pressures for success, and the road trip, or distracted driving. So you want to introduce yourselves, and then we'll come back to the students and report out.
Hi, I'm Perry Plummer. I'm the Director of Homeland Security and Emergency Management for the state and the Chairman of the Governor's Task Force on School Safety.
Hi, my name is Quincy Roy. I am a sophomore at Memorial High School, and I work with a coalition called Making It Happen. You're good.
Yeah. I'm Heather McLaughlin. I'm a senior at Goffstown High School, and I also work with Making It Happen, and we both work with DEA 360.
Hi, I'm Susan Pullen. I'm partnered with Heather today. I'm a clinical social worker providing mental health care in the primary care practice at Dartmouth Hitchcock in Lebanon.
Hi, everybody. How are we doing? My name's Mike Speck. I'm with the Ford Driving Skills for Life program. I'm a former race driver, and I'm also a professional driver coach, teaching everybody from the pre-permitted teen to NASCAR drivers to special forces operators how to drive a car safely.
Great, thanks. So Quincy, you want to get started?
Of course. First off, I would like to thank all of you parents for coming out and talking and listening to what we have to say. I'm not here to pressure you into anything, but I'm here to encourage you to listen to what we have to say, and hopefully we can make a movement by you guys listening to us as youth. Another thing that I would like to state before I start is that school violence is not exactly my expertise. My expertise with Making It Happen is substance prevention. However, school violence is just as important, and it still has to be addressed. So that's what I'm here to do. This is also why I have notes. This gathering of students today and yesterday are both to talk about all of the current topics that are relevant to teens, and this is definitely one of them. School violence is growing. It's growing in all communities. Yesterday, meeting with other students from all across New Hampshire, I heard so many stories about each and every person's insecurities or what they were scared about when they were entering their schools. And that can't be acceptable. That has to change. What is violence? Violence isn't just bullying. That's why there are two different topics. Violence is more physical. It's physical contact, or it's threats where you don't want to come to school. It's fights in the schools, and it's gun violence. Gun violence is, of course, something that has been brought up more recently and has become more popular. However, everything else is also included. Some of the causes from violence in schools for other students, not the ones who are causing it, but the ones who are witnessing it, is heightened anxiety, distraction from education, and being scared at school. School is a place for education. School is a place to make friends. School is a place to feel comfortable. How are we going to feel comfortable if we don't have the proper resources and education? Why violence? Why is violence occurring in our schools? Raise your hand if you have a feeling that you know, you have any idea of why violence is occurring. Just raise your hand. Not too many. But some of you have some ideas. Let's see if my ideas correlate with all of yours. My opinion is substance abuse is definitely something that is also growing, and I believe is part of violence, because it can make teens act out. Mental health. Mental health is another thing that has been brought up over and over, and is something that has to be addressed in the proper way. Bullying, again, another thing that was brought up. All of these things that are being constantly brought up, this is why we're here. These all need to be addressed for school violence to be decreased. Another thing is many students go home to broken homes, and that is another reason for violence. So what can we do? What can the youth do, and what can all of you do? This is what you can do. For one, don't be a bystander, be an upstander. Credits to John Delana and Jim Wahlberg. Something that's been going on in our schools is actually recording these crazy events at our schools, and it's become as if it's entertainment. Why is this entertainment? If you want to watch a fight, watch a boxing match, because watching your friends beat each other up in the hallways is not cool. I just want to put that out there. Another thing is further guidance from guidance counselors. Hopefully, we could get some education in coping skills for people who act out. Some sort of anger management, perhaps, could be something that could be brought up in our schools. Another thing would be for the school shootings, which I do want to address, which has been very common recently, would be realistic safety drills. This is something that many students brought up, that we're oftentimes sitting in a classroom when these drills are being brought up and when we're just told to spread out in our classrooms. But what happens when you've never been trained in the hallways, when you're walking, when there's commotion in the hallways, and someone comes onto the microphone and says, there's a school shooter, get into your classrooms, and you have to rush in. What if you're locked out of these classrooms? You don't know what to do. There needs to be some realistic training, not just sitting back in a classroom and sitting around for 10 minutes while they pretend that something is going on, because that is not realistic. And the last thing would make schools become a more family-friendly type of place. Become a family with all of your students. Become a family with youth to youth as peers. Pep rallies would be a great idea. You have a pep rally, once before every vacation. That's 3 times a year. That needs to become a more constant thing. Obviously, we don't want to take away from education, but what is more important? A family-friendly place where you know that you're safe and you know that you are comfortable with your peers and your friends, or not that and getting a little extra day of education. And it's not even a full day, it would be like an hour or something like that, just one period so we can connect with each other. And my last thing that personally I thought would be kind of cool would be a buddy system. So like seniors helping freshmen as an introduction to the school and learning about the school and finding their way around. That could be a way for someone who doesn't personally have a friend or a buddy, but now they do because it's set up. So that could be just another idea. Thank you.
Like I said, I'm Heather McLaughlin. I will be speaking today on both pressure and road trip. So I'm going to start with pressure. So there's a lot of different kinds of pressure, and that was one of the things that we learned yesterday, was that no one has the same sort of pressure in their lives. Everyone has something different. This can range from sibling to parent pressure, pressures about school, self-pressure, and comparing yourself to others. A lot of these, though, kind of come down to stress and how stress affects us. So one of the things that we had talked about was the way that education is kind of structured and how it doesn't always accommodate different kind of learning styles. We've all grown up to know that some people learn in different ways. Some people are very hands-on. Some people are okay with sitting back and listening to a lecture. And some people just need an entirely new type of technique to learn. So more of the, or I guess less of the one-size-fits-all and really being educated in all these different formats. Then there's also self-stress, which you can create to yourself. I know personally, my parents don't put pressure on me about school because they know I put pressure on myself. They know that I will beat myself up over an 82. They know that they don't need to because I will do that. And I think it's really helpful for students to know that life happens. And you can go from an A student to a C student like that, but no one's going to ask you in 40 years what you got in biology your sophomore year. No one really cares that much about your biology grade. And then also the fact that life isn't point A to point B. There's bumps, there's illnesses, there's loss. And then there's good things, there's new careers, there's new friends. But if you imagine yourself from going from point A to point B, you'll be building up that pressure on yourself because you're going to feel like you can't hit those bumps. Or if one of those bumps come along, you have to push it away. You can't focus on that right now because it's going to build more pressure. So I think recognizing that change. There were also things like messaging techniques. There was this one girl yesterday who was talking about her grades defined her. Her freshman year, she got very ill, and that brought her GPA down. She is a junior now, and her GPA is 2.9. And I could even tell by the way that she talked that she's very intelligent, and she has a very large future ahead of her. But she feels like her grades define her, and that, when it comes to college, they only care about your grades. And she really wanted to go to these big end schools, these high schools, but she knows that because of the way her grades are, it might not end up that way. And I think that's just, again, realizing grades not defining you, and that something like a college essay or getting more advice from teachers at school will help in lessening that pressure and realizing that it's really not all about your grades. Because I know when I went to do college tours, a lot of the schools said, we read your essay to know who you are, because we can't look at your grades or your SAT scores and really identify who you are as a person. I personally wrote about all of this work that I do in encouraging youth to work for what they want. And I think that really helped, my college acceptance, people, to determine who I was as a person. Because yes, I take all these hard classes, but no, I'm not that person who sits around and does homework all day long. And then at schools, I think it's harder for teachers to recognize that students have other things going on outside their lives. They're like, I'm gonna give you a project, and I'm gonna give you a homework, and I'm gonna give you a test in 2 days, but so is your other 6 classes, or your other 7 classes, or your other 2 classes. At my school, we have something called the Student Resource Center, and a lot of students look at that as just a tutoring option because all of the National Honor Society members are there for tutors if they need them, but I am a National Honor Society member, and we are told that we will help anyone with anything that they need. We've had students come in and say, help me organize my binder, or help me prioritize my life. And I think it's more crucial that more schools have that, because even with teachers, not even National Honor Society members, just teachers being there, because not necessarily, like, I don't need help in calculus, but I might need help in organizing my homework versus my classwork. And I think having teachers or other students there would be really effective in helping students, lessen that stress in their lives. I think also the idea of success is different for each person. Some people yesterday said that success was having a happy family. Some people wanted a successful job and money. Some people just wanted to graduate high school and get on with their lives. Everyone has a different definition, and I think that will also help in lowering pressure, especially inside schools, because schools really aim for, do this, it'll help you in college. Do this, it'll look better on your transcript. Like, participate in all these extracurriculars, it'll make your high school career easier. But I think it's helpful for them to know, yeah, that could help, but that might not be what that person needs. And knowing what that person's view is of success will ultimately change how they view their life. And then when it came to comparing yourself to others, we learned that a lot of people compare with their siblings. I compared myself to my older brother for a very long time. Or even the older siblings were recognizing that their little sisters were comparing themselves. And there was this one person who said what she does is take her little sister to all these museums and everything, because her little sister says, I want to be just like you. I want to do everything you do. So she takes her sister to see the different opportunities that they can have in life. And I think it's the same with friends, too. Show them what else they can do. Because my brother went into video production. I have no idea how a video camera works. Not a clue. But me, I'm going into engineering. That's my special field. And I think for a while, I was constantly comparing myself to my brother. I wanted to be just like him. I wanted to be smart. I wanted to be tech savvy. And, now that I've gotten this far in life and I see where he is and where I am, he's 2 years older than me, I realize I am a completely different person. Mm-hmm. He couldn't come up here on this stage. For me, I do this a lot. I'm okay with talking in front of large crowds. And I think it's helpful to enlighten, especially youth, to know that they're their own person and they have so many different opportunities, and every person's future is so much different than the person sitting next to them.
So it sounds like youth are really good resources to each other as much as adults are.
Definitely.
Yeah. So can you give us a little bit about distracted driving?
Yeah,
We'll have to
absolutely.
wrap up shortly. Sorry.
So when it comes to the road trip, we talked a lot about distracted driving and recognizing that riskful actions have repercussions. So the number one influencing factor on youth drivers would be parents and how they drive. So parents lead by examples. And when parents were learning how to drive, you guys didn't have the hands-free law. So for you, it was normal. It was not out of the ordinary. Despite the fact that it still was unsafe, you guys weren't like as drilled into not doing it by the law. So I think that parents leading by the example with their own distractions are a big influence on their kids. But then also the fact that parents teach more don'ts than do's. You know what I mean? Like, so you're constantly telling them, don't do this and don't do that. Like, don't text and drive. Don't play your music while you drive. Like, don't choose a playlist. But you never say, what you should do is put your phone in the back seat. Leave your phone in your bag. And I think that also makes kids question what really is a no. What really shouldn't they do? Is what are their parents just like a suggestion? Kind of like the yellow signs that say you should go 30 on this road, but you don't have to. Like that's kind of the idea of with all the don'ts, what should you do and what really is important to act on. The number one distraction in a car, what we learned from yesterday, was actually friends and passengers. So you all would think that it would be cell phones. But really, your friends in your cars, your passengers, are very distracting. Like they'll be scrolling through Instagram and they'll want to show you, hey, look at this post. You're driving, you really can't look at that post. Or they'll be goofing off in the back seat. As a passenger too, you need to identify if you are unsafe or uncomfortable in a situation with that driver. But that brings upon an idea of risk versus reward. Especially in youth, you risk the idea of being alienated by your friends. And no one wants that. But you get the reward of looking out for yourself and, looking out for your friends. I heard a story yesterday about somebody who kept looking out for themselves, but also looking out for their friends, and their friends were starting to alienate them, but it didn't change how he did it. He kept going at, wear your seatbelt, don't touch your phone, you need to drive slower, no matter how many times they said, don't be so stuck up. And after a while, they actually recognized that he was just being mature and he was actually looking out for them, and they were thankful in the long run. So I think it's hard for some students to take that backlash from their peers, but by standing up for yourself, in the long run, you're making a safer environment for your friend and for everyone else on the road. Because I think personally, I might be putting myself at risk, and I could be like, not me personally, but like this is my idea of I'm only risking my own life. That's okay. I'm not risking anyone else's. But if you're not looking at the road when you're driving, you're risking everyone else's life on that road.
Yeah, that's a great message there. And I think that we heard yesterday afternoon, too, the number one telephone interruption in young people's driving is a phone call from their parents. Be advised. So I wish we could just keep talking forever because we're learning so much up here. But I want to leave a little bit of time for questions. These are really important issues here, and there's a couple of hands up over here.
Hi, I'm a middle school teacher. So is there any way to implement any of the recommendations that you've made in a younger level with student coalitions and things like that that could help them start a little earlier than high school?
Of course, there definitely is. When I became a part of this coalition, I jumped right in 8th grade. I started as early as I could, and could I have some people in my coalition raise your hands? You guys started in 7th grade? 7th graders. These are young people. I'm still young people. So everyone who was in my coalition, we started from McLaughlin, started from middle school. And so that is definitely a way to talk to your SAPs or your guidance counselors and try to form a group. Try to form some people who are passionate about the issues that you want to solve in your community, whether it's violence, substance abuse, whatever the issue is that is really attacking your school. But of course, these people in these coalitions, they'll want to help out with every single aspect of these issues. It doesn't have to be narrowed down to one. So that's definitely something that I would recommend. Just talk to your guidance counselors and try to get a group of students who, some of them can be leaders and some of them can be educated by the leaders and become leaders themselves. Because the whole idea here is to empower each other and not just have a certain group of people be the people who are most important. because everyone is important here.
We are looking at a generation of students who are incredibly smart problem solvers. It's just so impressive to listen to you guys. There's two other questions that I see, and while we're taking these questions, if the other students from the other panels could come up here, and then we'll have about a little less than 10 minutes to take questions on all the topics. So go ahead with your question.
So I'm a school board member and really enjoying listening to all of you today. We've been talking a lot about hiring a school resource officer for our high school and middle school. So along the line of school violence, did anybody in your group come from schools that have school resource officers? And is it a positive? Is it a negative? You're talking about more resources. We hear you, and we're trying to figure out the best way to do it. So any feedback would help.
So I believe my school does have a school resource officer. I believe my middle school did as well, I want to say. However, their job was often to jump in when a scenario was already occurring. There was no previous education. There was no previous realistic safety drills. There was no previous coping skills and anger management. And of course, the officers are great for those scenarios, but I think we need more education and more drills and skills.
So it's actually perfect timing. I'm a school resource officer for my district. So I wanted to ask, one, what can we as a police department, but more importantly, I'm the only one for my 3 schools. I have about 1,100 kids between the 3 schools, so I go throughout them, but what can we do to kind of bridge that gap? And do you see the school, it sounds like you may see the school resource officer only as a reactive position. So what can we do to kind of bridge that gap and to make us more approachable for not only violence situations or substance abuse, but someone that you can come to? Because as police officers, we're social workers. We do all these things out in the community for adults, and I want to try to bring that more to the kids' perspective.
I would definitely say that because you are already you're an officer, correct? Correct. So, okay. I believe that it's so typical to just see the officers step in when something is occurring, and I think a lot of teenagers are nervous to bring something up to an officer because you have a high-ranking position, and I feel like it's nerve-wracking. So maybe relating with kids on a more personal level, some sort of, I don't know exactly what would work, but an idea that was brought up was more personal interaction, guidance counselors and officers, both of them, to have on their list, make sure that they meet with them once in a while, more frequently than when something is happening.
My school district is fortunate enough to have 2 resource officers, one in the middle school and one in the high school. And I know one thing, if you're lucky enough to have a resource officer, our resource officer is a very chill person, and that allows the students to connect well with her. She is a great person, and one thing that I found that works is that she wanders the halls, and sometimes she doesn't even need to be in the school, but she wanders the halls, she talks to some students, and she's all over the school, and she's in our health class, and she's in our math class, just getting to feel the students. So when they have a question or when they need something from her, she's there. She's prepared to know who you are and what you're doing. And then another thing is, if you can't be there, because I know you work with a lot of students, do those small picture PSAs and just hang them up on the wall. And they could be questions. I know at our school we have some random questions, and they just make you think when you're walking to the bathroom, and you may not think it during the hall, and you may not talk about it to your friends because it may be weird, but they make you think in depth. So if you put up those types of questions around your school or in your work area, that would be very beneficial.
So some good suggestions and a job description that requires you to be chill.
Hi, my name is Christine. I live in the Seacoast area as well, and I'm just here as a parent, but I grew up in New Hampshire, and I had an opportunity when I was your age to do programs that taught about mental health and, being peer counselor and all that. And it was really great. But I think that it seems like this is still the problem, and it was a problem when I was, is how do you bridge that gap? How do you get kids, take the stigma away, and how do you get kids to open up to a peer or get involved in the program? Like, would it help to have some of these programs part of the curriculum? Instead of it being like you're the only one out of 100 kids?
Curriculum would definitely help. However, also having peers such as all of us and others talk to like classes instead of assembly groups, something like that, something more on a personal level. Because, for example, yesterday it was very diverse groups. You had all sorts of people. Some were shy, some were leaders. It was very diverse. And it just goes to show that communicating in small groups, people started throwing their answers out and we're very comfortable, and that's what we want. We want that community sense in each and every classroom.
Right.
So something along those lines where peers can reach out and be in the classrooms and talk to each other on a very calm level where they don't feel like they're being judged, because all teenagers are going through this together.
Right. You want to add, Adrian?
Yeah, so I go to Pinkerton Academy, which is a 4,000 kid population.
Right.
So add teachers into that and it's a mess. And so we have so many people, and what we found to be the most productive thing is having kids teach kids. So my sophomore year, I was trained in suicide prevention, I was trained in all these things, and what I learned from doing my presentation, it's a 2-day presentation. We go into health classes, we teach for 2 days, and then in August we do a training session of anyone who wants to come. And it's open invite, you can come if you want to come. And what we saw was the more we talked about it and the more we involved the freshmen, the more people we gain. So we go to sophomore health classes, and I had a girl come up to me after one of my presentations, and she goes, I have a friend who is suicidal. I don't know what to do about it, but I want to help her and I want to help other people. So for that one kid, after she talked to me, after her peers heard her talk to me, I had 5 more kids come up to me. And after them, my next presentation, I had 6 more kids come up to me. So it's all within the new generation. No offense to you guys, but we're the new generation. We're going to do the teaching.
2 more questions.
I actually wanted to go back to the SRO situation. I was previously on a school board, and I've recently come back as an elementary school counselor. We're lucky enough in our district to have 3 SROs. We have one at the elementary level, the middle school, and the high school. And at each level, they actually teach courses. The LEAD program, which is a drug and alcohol curriculum. So they do it at 3rd, 6th, and 9th grade. So all of our students in our district have a comfort level with their RSRO, and they're also comfortable enough to go up to them when they have other issues, whether it's something at home or just with other friends. So if you could possibly find a way to do that, I think it would be a huge benefit. I also wanted to thank all of the students up here, because it is amazing that you guys are doing this, and just speaking in front of all these people, even having a mic right now, I'm a little nervous, so
Yeah, they're amazing.
thank you.
Last question over here.
Real quick, you guys are all very digital in your lives, and have any of you had any success using digital format for your peer-to-peer support in the groups that you have, and do you think that's something that would be helpful?
Yeah, definitely. So something at my school and a few other schools in the area that really showed up this year was the Me Too movement. It was like the hashtag Me Too for sexual harassment, and it literally exploded. And then outside of schools, celebrities were doing it all the time too, which really helped a lot of people come forward and feel more comfortable, because they were like, oh, I'm not alone. And social media, we're on it every day now. We're scrolling through Instagram, whether it's Twitter, Snapchat, Visco, whatever it is. You look at that multiple times a day. I mean, I don't know if you guys have checked the app on your phone for like screen time, but I mean, we spend a lot of time on our phones. So through social media, spreading awareness for that is definitely helpful. And especially with, if you start like new trends, or if something is now like trending, it can be like serious topics too. It doesn't have to be like a goofy meme or something. It can be a serious topic like the Me Too movement or other movements.
So I think the hard part about social media is that there is a lot of positivity, like the hashtag #MeToo movement, or about, you have a school event and you post pictures with your friends and you can really like connect with people. But I think there's also a lot of pressure that comes out of it. I know that along with like mental health and even eating disorders, almost every topic that's up here has been involved with social media in some way, even school violence. And I think that there is the positivity aspect of it, but there's also the negative aspect of it. And I think that's one of the real battles within our generation is that the social media, yeah, you guys want to like kind of, it's common for you guys, for the older generation to look down on us and be like, wow, you guys are so addicted to your phones, you need to get off of them. But the phones give us a way to connect with our peers and to talk to them about things that they might not be comfortable with talking about in person. I have friends that have told me problems in their life over text that I can deal with, but talking about someone in person, even an adult in person, might be more complicated. So I think, yes, there's the negative aspect of it, but there's also the positive, and the real hard part, especially for you guys being adults trying to regulate that, is recognizing what aspects should we and should we not be enforcing with that. And I think it's important, even especially at the young age, like you were talking about in middle school, enforcing the positivity of it and not saying, all the time, put your phones away, don't text your friends. Be like, if you're texting your friends, tell them what the homework is. I know one of my classes, we have a group chat where we post all the homeworks or all missed class, and they'll literally send me the board, all the pictures of the board. And I think that's really helpful in enforcing the good things and not the bad things of it.
So with that, like with social media and everything, you like with all these movements, you have two options. You can be so anonymous and you can like really hurt people and no one will know, and it's like this is where it becomes a dangerous place, but you can also like help break stigma. Just like if someone is saying that they're depressed or something, you can just like message them, hey, are you okay? Do you need to talk? And if they don't want to talk there, you, like obviously don't keep pushing it or anything, but you can talk to them in person. And like social media is kind of like another outlet for people to like just talk about all the good things in life, and like even just sharing that, oh, I had a good day today, I hung out with my friends, or I went to this amazing event, and just finding a way to make the world a better place. And it can become so viral and everything, and it can like spread throughout the entire world just from like one event like this.
Can I just say that when I was a sophomore in high school, I was a total jerk, and I couldn't imagine having the wherewithal to be a part of these kinds of conversations. So I'm just in awe of this group. And I also just want to say that as the director of the Office of the Child Advocate, I represent the other end of the spectrum. We oversee the Division of Children, Youth, and Families, which is where when children's needs aren't met, they come into child protection, or they're in the juvenile justice system where they're actually adjudicated by the courts in order to get the help that they need. So it's really helpful to have these conversations early on. But it happens just last week, I was in this same room having a conversation about how to build resilience in children. And a pediatrician from Tufts University was here, Dr. Robert Sagin. He was talking about the pillars of hope, which stand for health outcomes of positive experiences. And he talked about the 4 things that help children be resilient, because we know that adverse childhood experiences last a long time. People's health and well-being is on a negative trajectory throughout their life if we don't build the resilience that they need. And the thing that struck me as I was reading through the transcripts of the children's conversations yesterday was that they're right on target for some really sophisticated research outcomes that we now understand about young people. The 4 pillars of hope: positive, supportive relationships. So these students today have recognized that it's so important. Even a single caring, consistent adult will make a difference in a child's life. A safe place to live, play, and learn. We've heard repeatedly from these students that schools need to be safe. We need places where we can play and learn and live. A sense of belonging and community. What's so remarkable about that, we were talking about how the community can be inclusive of children and young people, but they've talked about how they can make their community more connected, and that's just remarkable that they recognize the way to be resilient and build that community. And then the fourth pillar is opportunities to develop social and emotional competence, how to deal with stress, how to deal with conflict. And throughout all of the sessions yesterday, the students talked about we need to learn skills to deal with conflict. We need to learn skills to deal with bullying. I actually sort of heard them saying we need to have sort of an etiquette for talking about difficult things like race or gender issues or any of those things. So it's really cool that you guys are on target with some of the most sophisticated research findings in the country, or actually in the world. And so I want to thank you for the work you're doing. I'm really looking forward for when you run for the legislature or for governor or for Congress, because we're really lucky to have you as a resource.